Packing properly for Iceland can mean the difference between the trip of a lifetime and a trip that is ruined due to a lack of preparation. But don't worry, in this video, I am going to cover everything you need to know to pack for Iceland in all seasons. And if you stick until the end, I'll also give you a free packing list that has all these items so that you're able to pack with ease. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com. And this channel is all about practical travel advice from someone who's been there, done that, so be sure to like and subscribe if that sounds like your kind of thing. Now, let's start with a basic packing strategy for any season. Because the weather in Iceland is so notoriously unpredictable, our job of choosing what to pack is actually pretty easy because the answer is you need to pack for all weather types, just in case. Having visited both in summer and winter, I do think that the way you pack for any season is going to be pretty similar. The only difference is the amount and thickness of certain layers, as well as a select few accessories that you might bring for one season but not the other. And layers are really key here. On any given day in Iceland, you should be wearing, on the top, a base layer, a down or fleece warm layer as needed, and a waterproof and windproof outer layer as needed. And on the bottom, you should be wearing comfortable, walk-friendly pants, like leggings or hiking pants, and a waterproof overlayer as needed. It really is that simple, no need to complicate it. On a warm summer day, you can just wear your base layer with some pants and a fleece on top as a jacket. Or on a cold winter day, you can just layer up top as needed with a bigger and thicker jacket. Stick to the system and you can't really go wrong. So with that in mind, let's move on to specific clothing and gear recommendations, as well as how many of each to pack. Now, the quantities I'm going to be providing are what I consider to be a minimum of what you'd need to comfortably enjoy 10 days in Iceland. But you can of course pack more if you have the space. Just consider these ones as base non-negotiables. So in terms of clothing, my general rule of thumb before I pack a particular item is asking, could I comfortably wear this on a rainy day hike? Because honestly, weather changes so quickly in Iceland, you just never know when it's gonna start raining, and even on a nice day, you can be quite wet just from standing near the waterfalls. You'll also end up walking quite a bit no matter what, so yes, waterproof comfort is really key. Doing laundry on the road in Iceland isn't super fun either, so I would advise packing assuming you don't need to do laundry unless you're gonna be going on a very long trip. So firstly, what I would pack is one pair of underwear per night and maybe one or two extra as backup just in case. Next, what I would bring are 3 to 4 base layer tops. For summer travel, I would stick to short sleeves or sleeveless tops as needed, and for winter, I would do long sleeve. Choosing the right base layers though is super important because these are the layers that are going to be making the most contact with your skin. So ideally, you want something that is breathable and also wicks moisture. But most importantly for an Iceland trip, what you want is something that will hold up to spontaneous temperature changes and also multiple wears. This is why I always do merino wool base layers now, like these ones from Unbound Merino, an awesome Canadian company that specializes in versatile and timeless merino wool products, who are the sponsors of today's video. If you haven't heard of merino wool before, it really is a perfect material to pack for Iceland. Not only is it naturally resistant to wrinkles and odor, it also wicks moisture and regulates temperature while remaining thin and breathable. So it keeps you warm when you need it, but helps you cool down when you overheat, which is really great because in Iceland, you'll definitely feel these temperature fluctuations a lot getting in and out of the car, working up a sweat on spontaneous hikes, and also just when the wind decides it's gonna go a little crazy. And because it's antibacterial and fights off mildew, mold, and odor, you can genuinely rewear pieces for days, even weeks without it smelling, which is really, really ideal if you're packing light for your Iceland trip. Because this is going to help you maximize vehicle space and help you get around strict Iceland air restrictions. Merino wool has been huge in the outdoorsy community for a long time because it makes an amazing base layer, but what's great about Unbound Merino in particular is they actually make regular clothes out of the material that you can wear in your day-to-day as well. Like t-shirts, pants, and dresses, which I love because I love multi-purpose pieces that can be worn in all sorts of settings. So if you want to browse Unbound Merino's product selection, I'll leave a link in the description for you, and be sure to use the code Christina10 for 10% off your first purchase. Now, next up, what else you're gonna wanna bring is 1 to 2 warm mid layers. So a lightweight down puffer like this can often fold up super small and be really warm. A good fleece is also a nice idea as well. I had this one from Passenger that I wore all throughout my trip and I loved rocking this bull pattern. You should also make sure you have one waterproof shell with a hood. This is going to be much better than an umbrella, which stands zero chance against Icelandic wind. For winter travel, you might want to choose something that's thicker and warmer. But for my recent summer trip, I had this Arc'teryx rain jacket with me at all times, and it was honestly perfect for staying dry, even next to some massive waterfalls. Now, moving on to bottoms, what I would bring are 2 to 3 comfortable base layer bottoms. Again, make sure you're only bringing things that you can comfortably walk in. I would personally recommend leggings. I have this pair from Unbound Merino that I love, but I'm from Vancouver as well, so I also love to rock the Lululemon. Jeans I would honestly avoid because they can get so miserable when they're wet, and overall they're just not the comfiest to walk around in for a long period of time. What's great about keeping leggings as a base is they can work on their own in the summertime, or in the wintertime they can be layered underneath waterproof bottom layers like this. So hiking pants or rain pants would be a good idea to bring because again, it can get pretty unexpectedly soggy in Iceland, so you want to have something that you can just throw on top for extra warmth and protection. Next, what I would also bring are 1 to 2 comfortable pairs of waterproof hiking boots, like these. So unless you're just staying in Reykjavik the entire time, I do think that packing hiking boots is a really good idea, even if you're not planning on doing any big intensive hikes. This is because terrain can be really unpredictable in Iceland and weather can change abruptly as well, as I've said so many times. So you're never gonna regret having shoes with good grip. If you have space, bringing an extra pair might be a good idea, just in case your first pair gets super wet while you're walking around. Another thing to bring are 1 to 2 bathing suits. Now, there are tons of wonderful hot springs and pools to enjoy in Iceland, so definitely make sure you are prepared with a good swimsuit. I would personally recommend a one-piece for ladies rather than a bikini because it can be quite cold when you're not in the water, but bring whatever is comfy for you. Now, if you have room and you plan to use a lot of hot springs, packing 2 or 3 pairs might even be a good idea just to allow them time to dry. You should also bring a bag for your swimsuit. Even just a plastic bag or a garbage bag will work, just something to separate your wet swimsuit from your other items. As well as 1 pair of flip-flops or sandals. Now, speaking from personal experience, the last thing you want to do after a nice swim or hot spring soak is putting socks back on and hiking boots back on top. So yes, make sure you have a lightweight pair of flip-flops or sandals. Not just for hot springs and pools, but also if you're staying in a hostel or any accommodation with a shared bathroom, which can be quite common in Iceland, you're gonna want these. Now, some other things you're gonna wanna make sure you pack include 2 sets of pajamas. If you're sleeping indoors, just because with heating inside regular accommodation, it usually gets pretty toasty, so you're not gonna need super warm pajamas, unless you're camping. And I would also bring 1 to 2 hats. A warm toque like this, just in case for all seasons, because honestly, it can get very, very windy or cold even in the summer. And for warmer months, I might also add a cap to protect you from the sun. Now, another thing I would advise you bring is 1 buff to protect your neck from the wind. So for winter, I would pack something thicker like this. Ideally not a scarf though, because the wind can make scarves a little bit of a pain because it's just kind of blowing around everywhere. So something with breathable material, like a nice wool, will prevent you from sweating like crazy when you're wearing it, but it can still protect your neck so that you're not chilly when the wind gusts come. Another tip is to bring 3 merino wool base layer socks. So just like how you have base layer tops and base layer bottoms, I do recommend the same for socks. So for me, I bring just 3 pairs of merino wool socks. You wear these as a base, and then you can layer on a thicker pair of socks as needed. I personally do merino wool for these because they don't need to be changed as often, and you can just get away with a few pairs rather than having to pack 1 for every day. But I would also pack 1 to 2 thicker wool socks like these. These are thicker socks that will add some cushioning for you and your hiking boots, while also keeping your feet nice and toasty. Now, since you have your base layer socks absorbing most of the sweat, you can honestly get away with just 1 or 2 pairs of these, but pack more if you think you'll need them. Optionally, you can also pack 1 nicer, dressier outfit like this, but this is only necessary if you have a nice fancy dinner booked. Otherwise, you won't really need something dressy to this extent. Most restaurants are pretty casual in Iceland anyway, and honestly, you're never gonna look out of place wearing casual clothes unless you are going to a super fancy place. Now, in terms of gear, what I would always pack are sunglasses. So you never know when the sun is gonna come out and you'll need them to protect your eyes. So make sure you bring sunglasses. You're also gonna need a reusable water bottle. Icelandic tap water is perfectly safe to drink, so no need to buy any water, just bring a water bottle instead. And that is a smart idea that's gonna save you a lot of money, and also it's just delicious tap water anyway, so make sure you have a bottle. If you don't think you'll have space for a conventional water bottle like this one, then you could buy a collapsible one or just buy one bottle of water upon arrival and reuse that throughout your trip. Another important thing is to have a day bag that has waterproof cover. Ideally, you're going to want a water-resistant bag or something that has an additional add-on cover to protect your stuff because, again, there is a lot of randomly wet weather in Iceland and conditions can really just change quite abruptly. Unbound Merino actually just released their new ultralight travel backpack, by the way, which would be perfect for this purpose. Not only does it have a water-resistant PU coating that is great when it's wet out, but it also has a ton of great features like hidden pockets for air tags and also carabiners. Plus it packs flat when you don't need it, so that's really, really handy. Another bag that you're gonna wanna bring is a waterproof laundry bag. Now, even if you don't plan to do laundry during your time in Iceland, you'll need somewhere to store your dirty clothes, so don't forget to bring one. Along with a portable quick dry towel. Now this is going to be an essential for any hot spring trips. I like using microfiber towels like this because they're really thin, really lightweight, and they dry extremely quickly, so you're gonna wanna get yourself something that's small like this. Now in terms of tech, something you're gonna need is one universal adapter. I love one like this because not only can you use it all around the world, it also has 4 extra ports over here that you can use to plug extra cables into, which means you can actually charge 4 devices at the same time. This is important because in some accommodation, you might not have a ton of outlets to work with, so it's really great to have a block like this. You can just plug multiple things to charge at the same time. You should also make sure you have USB-A and USB-C charging cables. Now, the reason I specify you should have both, or at least an adapter like this that unplugs and makes it work for both, is because depending on the rental car that you get or the plane that you're flying on or wherever, charging ports might not be standardized yet. So it could either be USB-A, which is this old school design, or USB-C, which is on newer devices. So you should bring both to ensure that you're able to charge your devices properly. Now, on that note, you should also ensure you're bringing a portable charger. When you're out and about exploring, navigating, taking photos, you are going to be using your battery power so much quicker. Plus, weather conditions like extreme cold can cause batteries to drain quicker as well. So it's always a good idea to have a portable charger, especially if you're not going to have a rental car with charging capability. I would also recommend getting one that's wireless that doesn't require a physical cable plugged in, because some phones, like iPhones for instance, actually have a built-in safeguard that doesn't allow you to charge it with a cable if they detect any moisture inside that charging point. So this actually did happen to me in Iceland. I was stupid. I brought my phone into a spa with me. It got a little bit moist just from hanging out with the mist and everything. And then I wasn't able to charge my phone at all for several hours until it dried out. So you're going to be spending so much time photographing waterfalls and being up close to water that really you should make sure that you have a way to charge your phone wirelessly so that you don't get caught out with the whole not able to charge thing. Now, on a related note, you might also want to bring a waterproof pocket for your phone. This can be handy not just for keeping your phone dry when it rains, but again, also if you plan to take any photos at the thermal baths, pools, or just close to waterfalls. If you get one on a lanyard like this as well, that can be really useful anytime you need to go hands-free. And if you're bringing a camera, I would also consider getting some kind of waterproof cover for that as well. I personally just zipped mine underneath my jacket, so it always looked like I had this weird camera pregnancy belly, but an actual cover next time might make my life a lot easier and would make a lot more sense. Now, in terms of other must-haves, one definitely is sunscreen. This can be pricier to buy in Iceland, and you'll probably want to use it right away, so better to bring some of your own in all seasons. For the same reason, I would also advise you bring some moisturizer and chapstick. Dry conditions, especially in winter, can really dry out your skin, so it is a good idea to have some moisturizer and chapstick with you so that you can protect yourself as soon as you arrive. Another thing to pack is a small first aid kit. At minimum, something with some band-aids and blister pads and antiseptic and tweezers, especially if you plan to spend time in the outdoors. Plus, you should also be bringing any of your own over-the-counter medicine. Of course, there are pharmacies in Iceland, but once you get farther out, the opening hours can be more limited and they might be more difficult to find in more remote locations, so better to bring any over-the-counter medication that you might need for common things like headaches or allergies. Now, a super underrated must-pack as well is Ziploc bags. These take up pretty much no space at all and can be really handy for not just packing carry-on only toiletries, but also for packing snacks and food out for the day, like sandwiches on a hike. So definitely make sure you have some of your own so you don't have to buy a whole box when you're in Iceland because you're not going to use them all. On that note, it might be smart to also bring a few snacks of your own. I would pack at least a few non-perishable snacks like granola bars in case of a flight delay, or in case you're not able to get the opportunity to grocery shop immediately as you arrive. But otherwise, I don't think I would go crazy with bringing my own food and stuff unless you have specific dietary restrictions or are very picky about the snacks that you eat. Contrary to popular belief, groceries in Iceland are actually pretty affordable if you are shopping at the budget-friendly grocery stores, which I discussed in my Iceland travel tips video, so be sure to check that out. Now, apart from regular snacks, what I would really advise you bring are instant coffee or tea bags. Unless you're staying just in Reykjavik, you honestly won't be finding tons of coffee shops on every corner. So if you're someone like me that really needs coffee to start their day or a nice cup of tea to wind down, it is a good idea to bring some of your own, just in case. Although most hotels will provide some, you want to be prepared. And as just a bonus tip, if you typically take milk in your coffee, I would recommend getting some cappuccino sachets or some kind of instant coffee that includes milk powder in it. Just because if you're moving locations a lot when you're in Iceland or staying in a budget hotel that doesn't have a fridge, buying a jug of milk might not be a feasible thing to do if you have nowhere to safely store it. These days, I always travel with a Ziploc bag with assorted teas and assorted sachets of instant coffee just in case, and it has honestly saved me so many times, so definitely recommend bringing this. It doesn't take up very much space. Now, this is a surprising one, but I would also recommend you bring duct tape. Trust me, when you're out exploring, there's a million things that duct tape can be handy for repairing, whether that's a rip in your bag, shoes that have split, or whatever. So having some duct tape on you can really be a huge lifesaver. Another thing that might be handy is a clothesline. So even if you don't plan to do laundry, having a clothesline might be useful anyway for hanging things up like your towel or bathing suit. Plus, it doesn't take up much space, so it might be a good thing to have in your bag just in case. Now, before we move on, I'm just gonna go over some optional things to pack depending on the type of trip that you're doing. For longer term trips, you might want to bring some laundry sheets for, of course, doing laundry. I would recommend bringing sheets because they're lighter and easier to pack than detergent. For camping heavy trips, you might also want to bring a headlamp because campsites can be pretty dark and a hands-free flashlight can come in very, very handy. As well as a cooler bag. If you plan to do a lot of grocery shopping, then it might be a good idea to have one. Just because sometimes when you get into the more remote areas of Iceland, there can be quite long drives between supermarkets and your accommodation or your next stop. So it's good to have something that can keep your groceries relatively cool before you get to your accommodation. Earplugs or noise-canceling headphones might also be a good idea because campsites can be a very noisy place, so you might want to bring these to ensure a good night's sleep. Now for winter trips, you might also want to bring 1 to 2 pairs of warm gloves. Again, having a spare pair if you have room might be a good idea, just in case the first one gets wet. Ice cleats or grips for your shoes might also be a good idea if you're visiting in the thick of winter. This is just a good safety measure if you're going to be walking on snowy and icy paths. And for summer trips, you might also want to bring a sleep mask. With 20 to 24 hours of daylight in the summer, you're definitely gonna want a sleep mask to block out light so that you can actually get a proper night's sleep. Plus a mosquito face net for the summer if you're visiting the Mývatn area, because that area is especially known for having a lot of bugs. And some additional comfortable walking shoes for the summer might make sense because summer conditions often allow for you to just use regular running shoes or walking shoes and be fine on trails without necessarily needing heavy hiking boots. So if you want to give your feet a break, then packing an extra pair of shoes might be a really good idea. Now let's move on to some final tips and must-knows for Iceland packing. These tips are going to be very specific, but I promise they'll be very helpful. First off, make sure you pack all your essentials in your carry-on. This is just a standard good practice wherever you go. You honestly never know if your bag is gonna make it with you to your final destinations. So packing absolute essentials like medication, outfits for any first day activities, etc. Make sure those are in your carry-on, ideally even in your personal item, which is your under the seat bag if you can fit it, because these days it's guaranteed to make it to the destination with you. Now, on a similar note, do try to pack your swimsuit in its own tote with your towel and your toiletries ready to go. Not that I necessarily think you're gonna find thermal baths everywhere you go in Iceland, but oftentimes you will find that the opportunity will arise that you can just go have a nice dip. So rather than trifle through your entire suitcase trying to find your bathing suit, I would advise you have it in a tote ready to go so that you can just grab that and be ready. Next tip, do make sure everything has its place. So if you are doing a long Iceland trip, odds are you're going to be packing and repacking a lot as you go. So the last thing you want is to be scrambling, trying to find your base layer or trying to find that one specific pair of socks. So this is why organization is really important from the get-go. I am a big believer in packing cubes, so I tend to put my tops in one and my bottoms in another, and then my undergarments in another one, and then I'll always know where my stuff is. This is especially handy if you're in a camper van, for instance, so you can actually just grab the cubes out and keep all your clothes nice and organized, and then just throw the cubes back in your bag when you need. My go-to are these ones from Eagle Creek that honestly look pretty much good as new, and I've been using these for 10 years. Another tip is to leave room in your suitcase for souvenirs if you're planning on buying them. Again, this is good practice no matter where you go, but specifically in Iceland, where a common souvenir is going to be woolen goods, like a wool sweater or wool goods of some kind, you're really gonna need the extra space for any souvenirs, so make sure you leave some space. And finally, if you do get to Iceland, worst case scenario, you realize you've packed completely wrong, you need to get new gear and new clothes, then something I've never thought about that someone told me recently is make sure you go look for gear at secondhand shops. This is obviously going to be so much cheaper than shopping full price at shops, and you're likely to get good gear at an affordable price point. Reykjavik has lots of options. All right, thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else you would add, and I'll see you next time. Bye.